Welcome to our EYFS Maths workshop. In this workshop, we're going to be going through different ways that the children learn maths in the early years. We'll be talking about the outcomes for the end of the year and sharing some different activities and some words that you might not have heard of that sometimes come up in our learning. Briefly mentioned the aims on the previous slide. We're going to be explaining how mathematics fits into the early years curriculum, explaining what mathematics teaching and learning looks like within reception, and explaining how we teach calculation in reception. We'll be sharing some ideas of how you can help your child at home with their mathematics. Now, how does mathematics fit into the EYFS profile? So the primary areas of learning are communication and language, physical development, personal, social and emotional development. And the specific areas of learning are literacy, mathematics, understanding the world, and art and design. Mathematics fits across all of these areas, especially communication and language. The children need to be talking through their maths. It comes up when they're playing with their friends, when they're counting and sharing. How is mathematical learning achieved in reception? Structured play is one way that we can achieve this. As you'll see when you drop your children off to school, there are tables set up with all different activities, and this is the same inside. There's a specific mathematics table and many other tables. Often lots of the tables include opportunity for mathematics. Adult-led activities. These are activities that we do with the children each week. This might be the work that goes into their books, or the work that is linked each day to the lesson that we have as a whole class. Child-initiated learning. So this is where the children might choose some objects or some toys and they might start playing. And within their play, they will show mathematical skills. Cross-curricular learning. I spoke about this a minute ago in regards to the different tables having mathematics linked to them. It might be that in their creative activity, they're creating a pattern with certain shapes with the paint. Whole class teaching. Every day we have a mathematics lesson on the carpet as a class. In these lessons we do a little maths warm-up and then we go on to our main learning. You would have seen this during our home learning videos this year. Small focus group teaching. Linked to our whole class teaching, we go off into small groups and look further at the mathematics that we have been learning. We're just going to talk briefly a little bit more about whole class teaching. The teachers plan together to introduce and teach key concepts consistently across reception. This allows us to teach and model skills, concepts and language. It allows the teachers to assess more where more support may be needed. It also allows the children to work together to develop not only their mathematical abilities but also their general listening skills and attention, and also build on their communication and language. Early number sense is really important when children are starting school. Children start school with very different abilities. Some may be able to count to 5, some may be even able to count to 100. However, it may seem strange that we go slow with our counting and with our number sense, because actually, whilst the children may be able to count well, it's all about understanding of number. So reciting numbers does not always mean that they fully understand what that number looks like or how to make it. For example, if they were singing the ABC song, it doesn't necessarily mean that they could use those letters when they're reading. So, early number sense means that the children need to be able to understand, what is the number 3? What does it look like? How can I make the number 3? What number comes before 3 and what comes after it? So we give the children plenty of opportunities to handle a range of objects to sort, compare, count and play in order to develop their understanding of number and number sense. This is also built into our whole class learning. Please see this video on YouTube by Caterpillar Early Years that explains early number sense in great detail. Okay, so by the end of reception, the early learning goal is what we expect the children to achieve by the end of the year. So we expect the children to be able to count reliably with numbers from 1 to 20. Place them in order and say which number is one more or one less than a given number. They need to be able to use quantities and objects to add and subtract two single-digit numbers and count on back or forward to find the answer. They don't need to record this in numbers or as a number sentence. This is purely practical. However, being able to do this will help when they transition to Year 1. They need to be able to solve problems, including doubling, halving and sharing. Exceeding, so this is if the child is above where they need to be at the end of the year. Children to estimate a number of objects and check quantities by counting up to 20. They solve practical problems that involve combining groups of 2, 5 or 10 or sharing into equal groups. Types of calculation in reception. So, children should be able to compare groups or quantities using one-to-one correspondence to find the difference. One-to-one correspondence means that when they're counting, they can point to that object to help them count, rather than missing any out. We talked a little bit about this when we were doing our home learning sessions and the importance of counting accurately. They need to be able to share objects equally by counting how many in each group. This is early division. They need to be able to count groups of the same number of objects and add them together. This will be early multiplication. Count back from a fixed number when taking away. Subtraction. Count on from a fixed number when combining two groups of objects. Addition. Find one more or two fewer by counting on or back. And this is further showing early addition and subtraction. It doesn't matter if your child is not showing this yet. This is something that we will continue to work on over the next term, but it's also something that you continue to work on at home, and hopefully some of the suggestions in this video will help. Subitizing. What is subitizing? We start to use this before counting and number recognition. It is a skill that will support children with number sense and numerical patterns, linking back to what I spoke about before with early number sense. Subitizing is more efficient than counting and touch counting. It helps to develop children's pattern recognition. Sometimes children can over-rely on counting when they don't really need to. So for example, in this first box, as an adult you can look at this and see that there are 3 dots. You don't need to count it. This is a really important skill for children to be able to pick up on. It helps them to be able to look at a number and see what it is without needing to count sometimes if it's a small number. There are lots more resources for subitizing online, and even videos on YouTube that help the children to sing songs and learn how to subitize. Let's look at subitizing a little bit more. There are 2 types of subitizing. Perceptual subitizing. This is where children recognize small groups of objects without counting. This is the first step to having a greater understanding of subitizing. Conceptual subitizing. This is where children not only recognize subgroups, but need to combine the 2 to make one. So for example, they can see that this is a 3 and this is a 2. And if we combine them together, it makes a 5. This is a great way to develop children's understanding of number and beginning to look at addition.
So what does subitizing look like in Maundene? Let's have a look. How many dots do you see? I see 4 dots. Now a child might also say, I see 2 and 2. This time we see 9 dots. When you ask the children how they knew there were 9 dots, you'll probably hear things like, I know that 6 plus 3 equals 9, or I know that 3 groups of 3 equal 9. It's the different way that the children see these dots and the different groupings they see. It's important that children learn about place value, as it is at the heart of the number system. All digits have a value. Children need a secure understanding of this. They need to know where the digit lies and how many it represents. And this will then help their understanding on different calculation methods in the future. We use 10 frames to help children with place value. Here we're looking at the example, the number 13. So on the tens grid, the first one has 10 dots in there. That represents the 1 on the 13. And on the second grid, there are 3 dots, which represents the 3, and so makes the total 13. Here children learn that the 1 does not represent one item, but represents 10. Within our maths lessons, it is important that children learn their number bonds. Number bonds are the different ways that we make another number. So for instance, they start with their number bonds to 5. 3 plus 2 equals 5. 4 plus 1 equals 5. They also then go on to learn their number bonds to 10. By knowing these and knowing them off by heart and just seeing the numbers and knowing the groupings that make them up, this will help them at a later stage in their mathematical learning. There is a separate early learning goal for the mathematics, shape, space and measures. Children need to use everyday language to talk about size, weight, capacity, position, distance, time and money. They need to be able to compare quantities and objects to solve problems. They recognise and create and describe patterns, and they need to explore the characteristics of everyday objects and shapes using this mathematical language. Now, children could go on to exceed this goal, and they will then be looking at estimation, measuring, weighing and comparing, ordering objects, and also position and time. Again, they will be using further mathematical language to describe these. When we look for mathematical language that children are using, here are some examples. There is lots of words that we can use that help with their understanding of maths. Within our maths lessons, we often use a resource called Numericalon. This is a key method of teaching and learning that we use at Maundene. It helps children to understand numbers in a very visual way. They learn by doing active learning, and they learn by seeing. They can see the odd and even numbers, they can see the number of holes in each Numericalon, and they can count them individually, and they can see the different colours. This gives them a very strong sense of pattern and shape and seeing the numbers visually before actually learning to recognise the numbers. We also use Numericalon for addition and subtraction. This makes it a very visual process for the children. We use these shapes to support the addition and subtraction in a similar way as we would use counters. In addition, children are encouraged to find the shape that represents the first digit and then position the shape representing the second digit either next to or above or below to then find the total. Using Numericalon for subtraction is used in much the same way. We encourage children to place the second shape on top and then they can find out how many are left from the shape below. At Maundene, we support children to have a positive mindset and be resilient in their learning. This way they can develop an I can do attitude rather than I can't do this. They can think I can't do this yet, but if I try hard, I will be able to do this. Thank you for listening to this maths presentation. I hope this has given you some insight in what we do within Maundene within our maths work. If you have any further questions, you can always speak to your class teacher or you can message them on Google Classrooms or on Tapestry. Thank you for listening.